Ladies and gentlemen, now we'll go on to the next session titled Fun Research in Computer Vision from Robotics, Sports Face to Medicine by Professor Takeo Kanade, the UA and Helen Whitaker University Professor of Computer Science and Robotics at Carnegie Mellon University. Now, please welcome Mr. Kanade.
Thank you. Oops. So I'd like to talk about fun research in computer vision, or basically fun in the research. At Carnegie Mellon, I've been there for more than 35 years now. I have done quite a few things. This is the list of things that I was involved at Carnegie Mellon, ranging from robots to autonomous systems, including the car that drives by itself. Indeed, we did autonomous driving, like Google, without human driving, from Pittsburgh to California back in 1995. So 20 years ago, we actually did our campaign called No Hands Across America, meaning taking our hands off from the driving wheel and the car drives by itself using computer. That was 20 years ago, and I think that was the first event that has ever happened in this area. So now, as I said, I have done quite a few different kinds of things, and during which I had my own share of what I call moment of fame. Moment of fame, if you know what it is, it means that it's a very short-lived publicity in public. That is in English called moment of fame. And my moment of fame was iVision at Super Bowl. Super Bowl is the largest event in the United States. Its broadcast is viewed by 70% of people in the United States, totaling 500 million people in the world. And so it's a big event. And in that, we developed matrix-like replay anywhere in the American football field. Have you seen a movie, Matrix? Oh, good. I haven't seen it myself. But the CBS people, the broadcaster, came to me, and Professor Kanade, Matrix, in its finest moment, the main character jumps, and you see him spin around. The way that is taken is like this. In the studio, they put more than 150 to 250 cameras surrounding, focusing at a point. And then there, the character acts. And one of the camera is ordinary camera. Therefore, it actually takes all this motion. Now, at the right moment, all of these cameras take a picture of him at the same time. And then concatenate the picture from here, next from here, then it looks like this. Next from here, it should look like this. Next from here, it should look like this, and so forth. Therefore, the viewer feels as if the person spins around that point with the time frozen. So that's how movie Matrix is taken. Now, the goal is to do the same on the American football field. However, football field is large, and also you cannot anticipate where the right event will occur, unlike studio, where the director says, hey, do it here. Now, this is a game, so you cannot predict or even plan where interesting thing will occur. Therefore, we have to replace all of the cameras with the robots which can actually control the direction, including the pan, tilt, and focus, and zoom. And at each moment, all the cameras look at the right point. And therefore, at each moment, movie matrix situation is created around that point. That's the idea of iVision. Yeah? And so this system is indeed quite a system. It's made of 33 cameras. Each one is made of a robot. We used the A-2, that's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries robot at that time. That cost about $80,000 each one of them. And camera, which is about $15,000, and computer, and so forth. So each unit is almost $100,000, 10 million. So 33 of them. The cost alone is more than $3 million system. It's a huge system. And as you see, they are located on the second deck of this huge stadium in Tampa. And I actually looked, you see here, the scoreboard. There was one of them was placed there. And I actually climbed there. It's high, and it's scary. And the distance from there to the other end of the field is more than 150 meters. So you can easily imagine how big zoom you need and how precise the location need to be, the direction need to be controlled in order for the player to be captured in the middle of the view field. So that's what the system is. And each camera is connected to the trailer. You see here, trailer, control trailer parked outside of the stadium. So the cable from each camera to this controller itself is 500 meters per each. So 33 of them. So the cable alone, more than 15-kilometer system. So you can see it's a huge system. And that's what the iVision system was. And this is how it works.
Now, during today's coverage of Super Bowl 35, CBS Sports will introduce a new technology called iVision. It provides panoramic coverage similar to the special effects in the hit movie The Matrix. Here at the Super Bowl, 30 robotic cameras have been mounted on the scoreboard and all along the upper deck at intervals of 7 degrees. Each camera feeds into one of the 30 specially designed digital recording devices. The images are then computer calibrated to instantaneously show any spot on the playing field from all angles within the camera's 220-degree range. Professor Takeo Kanade of Carnegie Mellon was designing the software that blends 30 cameras into one dynamic panorama.
This is a gigantic robotic system.
もう少し大きくしてもらえますか、声を。声って言った。
idea of the direction, position of the cameras, and the relationship of the amount of zoom, amount of focus to the command that you give from the computer. And that is one of the hardest jobs.
This player is out, takes the pass, cuts back inside, across the 40 to about the 41-yard line.
All right, here it is. This is an example during the warm-ups, taken just a moment ago. The pass from Banks to Davis, and look at the way it can whip around. We're all looking forward to it. By the way, it can be used in instant replay situations in the case of a challenge.
We will talk from time to time tonight about iVision. If you're wondering what it is, this is what it looks like.
You got a pass rush, quarterback, he drops back. Look, he
So
sees a big lane. Look at
works.
that big lane, so he steps up into it. What always makes it easy for a quarterback is to have a clean line of sight. Watch Trent Dilfer, nice look off, looks to his left, and nobody in front of him. Look at that nice lane. He can see the receiver down the field, and what a throw.
This is halftime show. So like that.
Brian.
So that's, that's what happened, Super Bowl 35. And so I usually brag myself to be the only professor that has ever appeared on Super Bowl. Thank you. Now, interestingly, my appearance was actually a part of contract between Carnegie Mellon and CBS. So CBS paid money, cost for its development, a couple of $1 billion. And, but the agreement, clause 6 says explicitly, Professor Takeo Kanade must appear with his name and title clearly shown during the broadcast of Super Bowl. Can you imagine how much it costs to be on Super Bowl? If you want to have a 1-second commercial, it costs $100,000, $7 million. I was there for 25 seconds, $2.5 million worth. So that was my moment of fame. Now another moment of fame is, do you know Bruce Willis? You know, he's a guy, a tough guy, he never dies. And I was in his movie. When I said this, my student said, Professor, were you an extra? No, I was not an extra. I was myself, Takeo Kanade. This is Bruce Willis. You see, it's me. And my name is shown. It's my office. So, but it was only 2.5 seconds. So this is the exact moment of fame. Now, the goal of today's talk is a little different, of course. Now, when I think most of you are engineers or developers, and if I ask you, what is your wish? And most people say, to perform good research and development. I'm pretty sure you would say the same. However, if I ask, what is then good research, good development? It's very difficult to answer. Very difficult. What is good research? What is good development? Now, famous late Professor Alan Newell of Carnegie Mellon, he unfortunately died early with cancer, said a very important message. Now, if I brag myself a little bit, the long title I have, the U.A. and Helen Whitaker Professor of Computer Science and Robotics, it's a long title that I have, is the title that Professor Newell had before he died, and I inherited. So I'm very proud of it. And of course, it's hard to fill the shoes of Alan Newell, who was Turing Award winner. He had all kinds, everything. He is respected. Anyway, he said, good science must respond to real phenomena or real problem. In other words, unless you solve real problem that exists in the real world, it's not a good science. He said, good science is in the details. What it means is that academia people tend to say, this is about it. This is the basic theory. The rest of the thing, well, okay, you people who are not as smart as me should solve the rest. That's not good. You have to solve to the end. The detailed matters, he said. Finally, the test whether you did the good science or not is whether you made some difference in the real world. That is what he says is the good science or not. And I think it's very important. Now, of course, we're talking, this great man, of course, maybe talking a very big thing. But my belief is, none of us, sorry if there's one, is a Nobel Prize winner. So we may not be able to make this, the world-changing, the biggest discovery or invention in the history of humankind. Probably not. However, imagine that when you get older and your grandson or granddaughter asks you, Grandpa, what did you do? And you say, You use your cell phone, you hit that button, you see the shape of the button. It's not square, it's a little rounded. Now, that's my design. If you can say it, don't you think it's the best thing you say? You made a difference. So that's, I think, an important thing for us to shoot for. Now, my observation and experience is success ideas are often surprisingly simple and even trivial. Have you had an experience that when somebody had a great idea, great success, and I heard what it was, you say, oh my gosh, I knew it. It's such a simple problem, simple idea. I think I had it. Very often it's like that. Now, what is then the hindrance? What prevents for us to think that simple? I think it is what I call I know mentality. I think I know, also known as, AKA, also known as so-called expert knowledge. Have you had an experience when you say something, propose something, somebody who is senior to you will say, no, that doesn't work. I know it doesn't work. Professions like me, professor, have, the mentality, an inferior complex actually, to show that I know better than you. So when students come, I tend to say, your idea is the same as in the paper published in 1965. Read it. It doesn't work. Surprisingly, it works later. In fact, when you look at progress in computing, first computer was a large computer that was enshrined in a computer room with a specialized, stabilized power and used for scientific computing. The next series of computer was a mini computer. That was different from a large computer. It was taken the power from outlet. The designer of a big computer would never allow you to design such a computer. Never. Then the personal computer. Personal computer. I'm using my own computer for myself. When I'm thinking, computer is not doing anything. Computer for a long time was so expensive that it's impossible to think that computer is not used even a millisecond. Therefore, there was a concept like time sharing, which actually distribute its computing power millisecond to you, the next to you, next to you, next to you. That was the common thinking. Therefore, such a wasteful use of computer, like a PC, in which the whole computer is doing nothing while you're thinking. And also, it is doing such a useless thing to write your email. The previous designer of computer could never think of that. Next, today's network and ubiquitous computing. It's beyond computing. Data and connectivity is the one that controls. And all of these things are different. And if you look at it, mini computer came from DEC, which is outsider of the large computer market. Personal computer came from even non-computer companies, Xerox PARC. Network and ubiquitous computing, like Google, Facebook, they're not computing companies. Yet, if it comes to actual implementation, we need a specialized knowledge. For example, if you don't know control theory, and imagine that you want to drive your car straight. Now, naive thinking is, if you're turning right, too much to the right, steer to left. If you're too much to the left, steer to right. That's very natural. However, naive. But that doesn't work. If you do that, if you write such a control program, it begins to actually oscillate. In fact, in the worst case, it actually diverges and goes outside of the lane, because you don't know the concept of stability, which is a control theory. So, expert knowledge, expert skill is essential to do the real work. Indeed, if you think of that way, DEC, Xerox PARC, Google were companies of experts. Now, interestingly, most of them came from universities, American universities. And that's a very interesting observation anyway. So, I actually summarized this phenomena as think like an amateur, do as an expert. And I published a book. And I could sold 40,000 copies. Not too bad, 40,000 copies. And it became, it stopped. The publisher stopped printing. And a new publisher came. Professor Kanade, let's republish this book. I said, no, I don't want to write the same book. No way. And he said, don't worry, Professor. Let's publish the same book, same content, with a different title. And I said, is that allowed? He said, sure, of course. And then this is it. And so this is today, if you're interested, go and buy this book. Now, I actually added about 12 pages of new essay since I thought, what I thought since the publication of the first edition. So anyway, now, so let's talk about it a little more seriously. So how to conceive good ideas? Now, there's no way, I don't think there's no secret. However, as Professor Newell said and other people said, the right thing to do is get hints from everyday experience. Allow leap, jump inference. Now, this is important. Leap, jump inference. Possibly loose logic to reach tentative conclusion. In other words, go to the conclusion first. Not think, okay, we have this technology. If we develop this technology a little better, we can do this. A little better, we can do this. A little better, this we can. I don't think you can go that far. Instead, go to the conclusion first, and then ask, gee, can I do it? How? So, in other words, don't ask first, is it possible, or is that correct? First ask. First think of it, and then say, if possible, what happens? What needs to be done? And if so, what will happen? So that's the right attitude in my mind. Indeed, my claim is the biggest leap in logic in the history, in my mind, is this one, continental drift theory. Do you know continental drift theory? Yeah? According to the legend, I think some of which I made myself, so don't trust this legend. According to the legend, half of which my making, is that this guy, Alfred Wegener, was looking at this world map one day in his living room, and I found a very interesting thing. That is, this east coast of South American continent and the west coast of African continent looks exactly the same. So the legend says, my maid, he cut the scissors and connected. Indeed, it exactly matches. Then he thought, see, this is amazing. This is because originally the continent was one. And somehow they divided and moved and separated. Can you make this leapfrog, leap jump inference? I don't think anybody can. Maybe only this guy. Indeed, he was metallurgist, so he's a scientist. So he got a little more idea or proof, like remaining of, the ice, or special animals reside in the same both sides and so forth. But nobody could believe it, nobody, because it's so outrageous. However, later, after the Second World War, with the precise measurement of the Earth, it was concluded that it was recovered, reborn as the plate theory, which is the basis of today's almost all science of Earth, like earthquake and so forth. See? So if we can make this leap jump inference, we can be good scientists. Now, I claim, by the way, a Japanese would never come up with a continental drift theory. Now, you may say, no, Professor, Japanese people are imaginative too. I believe we are. However, no continental drift theory. Because when you come to Japan and look at world map, it looks like this. So I don't think you would ever think to compare, you see, the American continent, right end, African continent, left end. It's very difficult to compare. That's my observation. So anyway, a little more seriously, I think one of the examples that I like to talk about is a theory, is a scenario. And so iVision is one of many camera systems. It's not a many camera systems, but many camera system of many cameras, okay? Now, I actually came idea around 1990 when virtual reality was very popular. At that time, the most effort people were doing was to create nice display and let you in that so-called virtual world, like cave and all those mostly computer graphics technology. But I thought, now if virtual reality is useful if at all, that is because you have some real reality which correspond to it, in which you may want to do experiment, but you cannot do. Instead, in the virtual world, you do experiment, which is called simulation. For example, in a nuclear accident, you cannot make a nuclear accident. In space, you can't go there yet. So, in order to test it, you have to create virtual world. If that's the case, isn't it more important, at least as important, to actually not only display virtual world to real world in which we live, to digitize real world into the virtual world? So we asked that question, and we built first very capable scanning laser rangefinder in back 1993. And this laser rangefinder, which is today very common, but think of it, this is 27 years ago. Was actually have a laser, mirror, and spins, and the light comes back and measure the time difference, time of flight. Therefore, we know the distance. And this can spin 360 degrees. And I have to repeat, this is 1993, not today, okay? And it can digitize outdoor. At that time, this is the only device which could do this. And it can measure 1,000 points per second. Again, the fastest at that time. And as you see, it actually measures three-dimensional world and create three-dimensional model of the world. So this is inside of museum, and even person is digitized. And then this is so-called virtual reality at that time. Now, people were doing it a little bit, but I thought we have to be different. So I said, do big. And my student came up with the idea. Okay, big thing, where it is. Let's go to Cape Canaveral. And here's a huge rocket launcher. It's a huge system. And let's digitize it. And one floor, even one floor, it's like a building, you know, is digitized like this. Completely digitized back in 1993. So we thought this is the best device ever. So at that time .com was very popular. And we thought that this will make money. So we built a company. And we had a business plan. First year, sell 5, second year, 50, third year, 500, fourth year, all of our founders are rich. That was our business plan. It never worked. We could sell only one. Even that, I actually told all the students in Japan who has money, buy one. And that's the only one. The problem is it's too expensive, too expensive. So I learned quite something, what to do about it. There's a long history. So anyway, still we digitized like king's tomb in Egypt, like this, and a similar device was actually mounted on a helicopter and digitized the natural forest so that we understand the inside of the foliage, and so that the small helicopter, small flying object. Today, a drone is very popular. At that time, we were talking small. We're doing small helicopter, not drone. If it were today, we would have done drone. So, like that. And today, if you look at it, this technology is very common, and this is the University of Tokyo, and it's so common. Yeah. Now, however, all these are static scene. The world is dynamic. However fast the laser scan is, it cannot scan the real-time event. So we came up with a real-time stereo, and we actually had a real-time stereo which can digitize 200 by 200 pixels, 8-bit distance as well as color at video rate. This is the world first video rate stereo machine. It's a huge machine about this size. It consumed 5 kilowatt. So if you turn on the machine, the room was warm. Really. And there's a guy who actually helped to build this over there. It was fun. Now, however, if you have only one camera, only what this camera can see can digitize. See, your back, this camera cannot see. So we want to digitize your back as well. What to do? Solution is easy. Put more cameras. Yeah? And then digitize the whole world. And indeed, we built such a device at that time. 1995, we built a 51 camera system, dome. And in that room, if certain thing occurs, then it's three-dimensional series, we call it four-dimensional, is digitized, and you can create any scene as you like. So we call it virtualization. And like this, and you can fly around him like that. So our slogan at that time was, let's watch the NBA on the court. So the whole NBA can be covered by this large number of cameras, and you can watch the game from anywhere you like, even inside the field. And with that vision, today we have a 1,000 camera system. 480 of them have been implemented at Carnegie Mellon. And let's see what it goes. Now, it's interesting. Today, these multi-camera technology are used everywhere. I don't have enough time, but I hope you agree with me. Now, one episode that I have is, can you believe this? When I wrote this paper, when we wrote the first multi-camera stereo paper, the paper was rejected. Really. I thought it was one of the best papers. But it was rejected. And the reason for the rejection is, it says, the system that uses this many cameras can be afforded by people like Professor Kanade, who has so much research money. He can build it, but other people can't. Therefore, it's useless. So it's rejected. Now, if you look at today, that criticism is nonsense, isn't it? The camera is cheap, almost zero cost today. But that was indeed the review paper, a review of the researcher who is supposed to be an expert. You see? It's very interesting. So the value of research is always interesting. Now, my claim is newness is not virtue. Usefulness is. I think it's a mistake. We look for newness. New is not virtue. Almost anything is new if you want. But whether it works or not is a virtue. Now, of course, it's very difficult to imagine. Now, this is there's a paper called Lucas Kanade paper. It is actually my name in it, which is very the technique is used in today's like MPEG and all these things that you use today. When my student, Lucas, came up with this idea, and he said, Professor Kanade, we should write a paper. I said, no, you can't. He asked why. I said, this is nothing but Taylor expansion. Taylor expansion has been known for 200 years. So you can't write a paper with my name just for Taylor expansion. But he insisted. So I said, okay, make sure to write a paper in a very obscure place so that many people can't read it. And he published it. And we never even published in any journal. It was a very obscure place. But can you believe what happened? This turns out to be one of the most referenced paper that I wrote. More than 10,000 references. 10,000. Not 100, not 1,000. 10,000. So the right thing is to have a good, persistent student who has the right idea what is useful. Now, I think I'm running out of time, so let's make just one point. Can you believe even John Foy Neumann could not agree with the concept of Fortran? He said, why do you need a Fortran compiler in order to program computer? Because he said, I can program with machine language, no problem, he said. So there's no need of compiler. You see, even John von Neumann, who is probably the smartest guy in the history, could not anticipate the value of compiler. Now, one thing that I'm in today is smart headlight. So when you drive in rain, you see the rain appears to white. Why is it? Because raindrops reflect light. So your headlight hit the raindrops and reflect back on you. That's why the rain appears to white, and it's hard to drive. So can we actually erase them? It's easy. Well, how? You actually change the headlight with projector like that, and when you see the raindrops, you control the rays of headlight so that the rays does not hit the raindrop. Then, of course, you won't see them. That means you're driving as if it's not raining. And you may wonder, how can you do it? It's easy. What to do is you shoot the right light very briefly and put the camera in co-axis with the projector so that the line of sight is the same. And as soon as you see the raindrops, turn off that rays, corresponding ray. So what to do? Indeed, if you look at, to us the rain looks like a streak, but with 1 millisecond camera, it is a raindrop. So what you need is you put the camera and projector coaxially and connect them with a computer. And buy a head like exactly that one and remodify it. Those are made of this DMD chips, which is an array of small mirrors, which actually can work fast, but common practice does not need it, so we modify it, and then put the camera in front of it, and package it, and rolls out, and put on the car, and it's a new headlight. And if you see rain with it, for sure the rain doesn't look. You don't see them. Huh? Of course, it is designed to be that way. Now, as snow too. And the headlight, the easier application is up beam and low beam. When you're driving, you want to drive with a high beam because you can see farther. But if you do that, the incoming car will have a glare, and for a short second, the driver is blind. And if you're like me, older than 55 or 60s, the period to be blind is much longer than younger people. Dangerous. So what to do? All we have to do is turn off the rays which corresponds to the eye of the incoming car's driver. Then he doesn't see your car is high beam. Yeah? Like this. Now, of course, we cannot tell exactly where your eye is. So about the half of the windshield. And if you do this, then you see, upper side is incoming view. It's no problem whatsoever, you see? It's not glare. But from you, which is lower picture, it's always high beam. So this car is actually always high beam for you, always low beam for incoming cars. Now this idea has a lot more implication because the camera and projector is the same. Only difference is the direction of light. Therefore, we can have a new camera which has this DMD chip in front of CCD chips, and create a new kind of cameras. I don't have enough time to go the detail. So with a little problem of going a little over, I like to, I may need a few minutes. I hope it's okay. To conclude my talk. So I think always we researchers have to convince other people in order to, to sell our ideas or for other people to do similar research. Now, how can we do? I think my philosophy is convincing power comes only from quality and quantity. So now I'm going to show you a few Kanade's quote. I'm good at creating short sentences, and often people say Kanade's quote, and I hope some of them you like. So the first one, overwhelm audience by scales and detail. Overwhelm meaning that if you have a scale and details good enough, people won't ask questions. Just follow you. If it works, it's convincing. My saying about it is, if you ask, quite often, if you give a presentation, people come and ask, that's a great idea, I'd like to learn more. I say, they're not yet convinced. So I say, if they ask how your methods work, they're not yet convinced. If they were, they would ask, how much is it? You see the point? So, things that works will convince other people. That's the only way to make it work. Don't compromise yourself. Always ask more and further. My saying is, how high your high is determines your level. In other words, if you say this is high and other guy says this is high, he is the winner because his high is higher than your high. Do fast. Speed of implementation separates the winner. And my saying about it is, who said it first is not important. Who gets there first is. Often, when we see a good work, we tend to say, I think I've been saying it for years. No, that's a barking of a lost dog. You have to be the one who do the first. So, finally, I'd like to give you Professor Alan Newell's great phrase. Problems are waiting for you to solve, to be solved. He said there are enough problems, valuable problems in the world that are waiting for you to solve, and you can make a contribution. I wish I could make this beautiful saying, and I always say this at the end of my talk, and I hope that by repeating this many times, gradually I will use a thinner and thinner fonts of late Professor Alan Newell, and eventually that becomes my saying, and hope that will work. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Kanade.